Hey guys, and welcome to the Blue Podcast on the Blue Podcast Network. I did a different intro today, felt like it. But today's hosts, me and Jamie and Isaac, and today we have Beatrice Rogers. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you boys doing?
Yeah, all good, man.
Yeah, decent.
Decent.
Happy that Ajax are through to the Europa League now. Got a 7-1 aggregate win. Was
Not
their
bad.
home and away,
Yeah.
and ready to get slapped by every team we play against, knowing us. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Fair enough. And Beatrice, why don't you let our audience know what you do? I mean, I think the shirts on display might give us a hint, but
So
I'll let you say it.
I play football. I'm currently signed for London Seawood, which is this one here. But I've been playing since I was 10. Is when I signed for my first team, and yeah, I'm absolutely loving it at the moment.
Who was your first team?
So PSG, Plantation Spartak Girls. It was local grassroots team, but it was a really nice starting point to be fair.
And your position?
I play centre back.
Centre back. Always been centre back.
Drifted around a bit when I was younger. Played in goal for a bit. Centre mid, bit of everything. But yeah, more recently it's been solid as centre back. That's where I feel comfortable.
Nice.
And how long was it between PSG and going to Cambridge, or was there more in between?
There was more in between, to be fair. So I was at PSG for maybe 3 years, and then at the same time I was signing for them, I signed for a boys team just to get some experience there as well. So that was Melbourne Dynamos, and then I left PSG and went to Cottenham Colts Girls, still signed with Melbourne, and then I left both Cottenham and Melbourne and signed for Cambridge United's development team. Then stepped up to their first team, and at the end of last season I left there and have signed for London Seawood now.
And so, good start to the season so far?
It's been a bit of a rough start to the season. The club were in a bit of chaos at the end of last season, lost management and players, but we've rebuilt. We were a bit late to pre-season, so we're a bit behind, but we've picked up a couple of good points so far. So we're getting there. We're just building what we've got and learning every week. So it's been good.
And what division are you guys in now?
So we're in the Tier 4, so the Women's National League, the South East Division. So it's a competitive league, really, really good.
What other clubs? I think you've got Dulwich Hamlet in your...
Yeah.
You've got Dulwich
Dulwich
Hamlet in your club.
Cambridge as well.
Yeah.
Cambridge, okay, so
Hamlet
against your former team.
Yeah, we're playing them this weekend actually.
Oh, well, good luck. Should we start from what I kind of like, just in general, what got you into football?
Yeah.
Sorry, first of all, we're going to start with what team do you support?
Ooh.
So I support Arsenal women.
Oh, that's
but
why you asked that.
specifically the women, not so much the men.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
So yeah, what got you into football?
So I come from a really sporty family. Both my parents were really into sport, but neither of them played football actually. But when I was younger, we were actually lucky enough. We got season tickets at the Emirates. So from about age 7, I remember going to games and just absolutely falling in love with it. Like, I loved it so much. I used to turn up like 7-year-old me with a little notebook and pen, and I'd just be like taking notes on everything. So I thought it was fascinating.
So are you kind of more of a student of the game then?
Yeah. I think so. I find it so interesting, and from a young age, I absolutely loved it. But so from there, I then started playing in the playground at school with boys, and then I was in the boys' football team at school, and then that didn't work out, so I signed for PSG, my grassroots team, which was nice.
Yeah, it's nice, like, build up, you know.
Yeah.
But how do you guys know each other?
Just
So,
connect over social
yeah,
media.
through social media.
Yeah.
So from the last podcast, from my first one, she kind of like followed me from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we had
Taylor?
Kaylee,
Yeah.
who was also Cambridge, and I saw that she was a player, and was like, look, do you want to come on?
Mhm.
Because I know we'll get onto it later on, but you do some stuff around social media as well.
Yeah.
As we'll get onto that in a bit. But yeah, so I was like, look, it's interesting, it'll be good to have on here. And I think, given that there's that connection we've done some
Yeah.
Cambridge before, it's a good kind of place to build off.
And how was your time at Cambridge? I'm guessing you obviously played with Kaylee.
Yeah.
Both defenders, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, I played alongside her for a bit in the development team about 2 years ago now, and she was such a good player to play alongside. Like, I learned so much from her. Her knowledge is insane. But I love my time at Cambridge. The setup they've got at that club is really good for like a Tier 4 women's national team. So it was really nice. Unfortunately, I didn't get the minutes that I would have hoped for last season, hence the move over to London Seawood. But I did really, really enjoy it there, and that club's got a special place in my heart. Like, maybe back there one day. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. So how old are you now? You are
18.
18. So
Okay.
you broke into that team young.
Yeah.
That's a big step up.
Yeah.
How was the step from the kind of like development into the first team
So
football?
it's a massive step up. The biggest noticeable difference is like the standards. Like development team football, like some people are late, not trying hard, but when you step up into first team, like you have to be switched on it. Training is serious. So it's a big step up. But I think for me, going from like youth development football to women's football, me playing boys football for so long, like I have definitely made that transition a lot easier for me.
Yeah, and you say Cambridge help you set up for that, step up
Yeah,
in terms of they kind of
definitely.
prepared you for that.
Definitely.
Moving to Seawood, was that sort of like very much like a self-directed move? Because obviously, I know that even in like lower league English football, like a lot of it is there's not a massive like scouting thing. There's none of that. Was that
Yeah.
you went to them and you were sort of like, look, I'm looking to
So
move or...
they actually reached out to me.
Okay.
So they lost, like I said, pretty much their whole team at the back end of last season, which is a shame. And they were looking for an extra centre back just to make up numbers. And their manager reached out to me over social media.
Okay.
And I was like, I'll come down to training, and I came to a match as well. And I was like, I love it. It's such a nice environment. The girls we've got are incredible. So yeah.
Where do they play? Because I was
That's
seeing that they
nice.
used to be Leighton Orient women's,
Yes.
right? And then
Yes. So they've got a bit of a long history, which I don't know so well. So
Mhm.
not been there too long. But we share a pitch with Redbridge, so we play at Barking side.
okay, yeah.
My knowledge of London's not great, but
Cool.
no, it's a nice. The setup they've got is really good, and we're definitely building something special.
I saw their socials as well. Like it's very well run.
Yeah, we've got a new social media guy.
Yeah.
And he's doing such. a good
Yeah,
job.
very well. I saw it as well. It was very well set up.
And I'm a media guy myself as well for National League side. And I was looking at him and was like, I might take some tips.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
branding, like that's
Yeah.
a nice
Yeah.
kit.
I was going to say, I love the kit actually. It's really nice. It reminds me of the, Chelsea one a few years ago, where they had the kind of like lines as well.
Mhm.
I'm not really too familiar with English kits, but I do. It just reminded me of that. It's a really nice kit.
Yeah, no, it's nice. The setup and like the back in the club squad is incredible, and like you said, the social media guy, he's doing such a good job. So it's exciting. Like the potential that this club has at the moment is really exciting to see.
Yeah, no, and something I noticed as well on your social media. I wanted to ask what the Independent Schools Football Association is.
So it's like a national team.
Mhm.
They've got like under 12s through to under 18s, and you go to trials and they'll pick a squad from that. Where it's so there's the English Schools FA and the Independent Schools FA, and the independent is for people who go to independent private schools.
Okay.
And they pick a squad, and lucky enough I was selected for it, which was very exciting. And we had a camp at St George's Park
Oh wow,
back in
nice.
December, which was
That's
very
pretty
cool. And we got to play. We played against the English Schools FA, so kind of like an international fixture, so to speak. And it was just such a cool experience.
And you were getting played centre back. And how does that kind of whole process work? How do you get picked? And
So it's all about reaching out and going to trials. So they had trials in September last season, and I'd say there were over 100 people there. It was a lot of girls turned out, and then they picked a squad from that. They pick, I think it's like a 16-player squad plus like non-travelling reserves, which is actually where I ended up being. So
Okay.
I didn't get to go to their first camp that they had in about October time. But someone, I don't know who, but someone dropped out from the October camp, and that's where I got called up. So I'm grateful that I got to go to St George's Park. So that was the cool camp that they had. But yeah, they picked maybe like 25 out of about 100 people.
oh wow,
Wow, that's impressive.
that's cool. And so this is different to. So it's almost like they do two. They have the independent version and then the kind of state school version.
Mm.
And then you guys played each other.
Yeah.
What was the score?
We won 1-0, 2-0,
Oh,
something like that.
nice.
But that
Good
was the
start.
first time.
Clean sheet.
That was the first time in history that the independent has ever beaten the.
Oh
English
wow,
schools.
so proper big result.
That's
Yeah,
a
it
big
was-
result then.
Yeah.
Massive.
So technically, you have an England cap.
Yes, I do have an England cap.
That's pretty.
That's
cool.
incredible. Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Wow.
Talking more to you do work with Under Armour
Mhm.
as well.
Yes.
So how has that? How has that come about? How was that?
So I'm a sponsored Under Armour athlete. I got the sponsorship back in about February time through the UA Next program. It's basically they are running a program where, again, kind of like through a trial system, you go along, you do some tests. I think over 1,000 people went and tested, They select 10 from that. The top 10 people get flown out to Amsterdam to do to do some more testing, and then from there they pick the top 3 and they sponsor those 3 athletes for a year.
And you're one of those 3.
You're one of wow!
Wow.
Congratulations, that's
Thanks.
incredible.
Is it just footballers or all athletes?
So we've got a mix. So they sponsor 3 athletes roughly every 3 months. They do like a new season where 3 more athletes will get sponsored. And I'd say, so there's 12 of us at the moment. We're all footballers apart from 1 rugby player and 1 American footballer.
Oh,
So
interesting.
mostly footballers.
And mix of girls, boys.
So each season they will sponsor 2 boys and 1 girl.
Okay.
So there's 4 girls at the moment. So not
So if anything, you're getting the spots even harder.
Yeah.
yeah, you can say that. I mean, ultimately less girls, I guess, go down and test, so the pool is a bit smaller. But
Yeah.
I guess.
It's still a big achievement.
Yeah. What does that
Yeah.
kind of entail for you, being an Under Armour?
So through this program, they basically support us with our training, diet, equipment. They will support us in any way they can, which has been incredible. But on top of the support with our own sport, they're providing us opportunities in the social media world and getting to go to events. So we went to their football boot launch back in February time with Eddie and Ketia, and got to launch a boot with them. And
Yeah, of course, because you're working with players as well, like Premier League players will be sponsored. So
yeah,
that's really interesting.
The opportunities through it have been incredible. Like, if I'm honest, when I went and did my test in Beatrice, the first round of testing, I wasn't expecting anything from it. I'd even booked my next test to come back and try again, and then I got the message saying that I'd been called up to the Amsterdam stage. It was a complete shock. So it's been incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it sounds amazing.
Such a quick
and at 18
rise.
as well, just
Yeah.
fairs.
Yeah, congratulations.
What are we doing?
Honestly,
What are we doing with ourselves?
That's the thing. I look at
Not
myself
much.
now and I'm like, oh, you know, I could still make it. And I'm like, wait, no, I'd be getting moved
Right.
on for young players. I'm going to
Yeah.
hit 26 in
So here's the
November.
thing. I remember I invited her to come to one of the other shows. She was like, I'm doing an event for Under Armour, and I really was like, what the hell am I doing with my life? This is impressive.
Yeah.
But no, so you mentioned social media. We'll kind of come on to that. So I know you do a lot about like awareness outside of football on social media.
Yeah.
Was that kind of helped out through this program, or was that kind of you who took that on?
So when I signed for Under Armour, obviously with them, they're interested in getting us into social media and promoting them a bit because they do so much for us. That's kind of when I started posting bits about Under Armour, that kind of thing, and I fell in love with it very quickly. Like, I really enjoyed the creative side of making content. Like, I really liked it. So yeah, from that I've kind of taken it on myself and started doing my own bits and just really enjoying it, to be honest.
Yeah. So if you just talk about kind of how would you kind of explain to somebody what you do on social media, for example, in your
So
words?
I'd say that I'm trying to make like day in the lifestyle content is mainly the stuff I'm doing to try and just give more representation to women's football. When I set out with my content, I was like, what am I aiming to do with this? And my aims have kind of been to give more representation to the women's game. Because when you look on social media, scrolling through, and you see a lot of like male footballers promoting what they do, how the game works for them, how to get into it, all of that. I didn't feel like there's enough for women's footballers. And when I was a young girl, obviously social media wasn't so big then, but I saw zero representation of female footballers. So like I hope that my content just inspires people to at least know that is an option for girls as well.
Who inspired you the most?
That's a good question. I say the first time I remember seeing a female footballer, I was in a bookshop and I saw Kelly Smith's autobiography and I bought it. That was the first representation I ever saw of women's football. Up to that point, obviously, like I said, I had season tickets to the Emirates.
Mm-hmm. And was that for women's and men's football, or just
the
for
women weren't at the Emirates back
Oh,
then.
they were,
Yeah, women would have
don't
been
know when
better
they
parts.
was.
Yeah.
I think.
But I had only seen men's football. I didn't realise that there was a pathway for women at all.
Mm-hmm.
So after reading that book, I was like, there's another world that I haven't really opened up. So like looking back on it, it was a shame that I didn't experience it sooner. Like I didn't get enough of that representation. So I really hope that even if it helps just one girl just see it and know it's an option, they don't have to pursue it, but just as long as it's an option.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting. You came through like Cambridge Academy, done all this. Like I know 2 people from, so I grew up on the Isle of Man. I know a couple of people who went through the whole of school, did sixth form, and then
Yeah.
went into, I mean, obviously, like, literally at 18 going in for,
Yeah.
like, 1 or 2 years of academy development. One of them went into, like, the Chelsea team, never did anything with it, but, like, that pathway, like, boys go in at 6,
Yeah.
7 years
So-
old and
so
in
young.
there the whole time.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, like, there's a fear, obviously, because the top end there is like, oh, we could be on 300 grand a week.
Mm.
So you're going to push that, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of fear for women with the lack of pay at the top and all of that. Like,
Yeah.
there's no.
I mean, my friend's brother was signed to Arsenal at 6. That's the
So-
fact that they even have it under 6. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I think content that stood out to me quite a lot was for me was like the kind of sacrifices you make from football and that kind of stuff. And I think that kind of works with, you know, mainly women, but also men in terms of it's just a side of football that people don't really think about. In terms of, as a footballer, what kind of issues do you face outside of football?
Yeah.
I think, what would you say is, you know, I say outside of, like, you know, playing football physically, what would you say is, you know, like, mentally the most challenging thing of being a footballer?
I think there's a lot of, like you said, that side of being a footballer that isn't spoken about at all. Like, you just see the pay that Premier League players are on and how incredible of a lifestyle it must be. But I think it's a lot tougher than people think. I think for me, the amount of sacrifices, even from such a young age, I was doing to try and pursue my career, because, like, the last few years I've been trying to do school and football. Obviously, I've now finished my A levels, but trying to find that balance was so hard. I was missing days of school to pursue football because you just can't do both. And then because of that, I'm missing out time spent with friends. Friendship started to fall apart because I just wasn't there. I couldn't put the energy into that. Can't go out at the
So
weekends.
socially, you'd say is
Massively. I
Yeah.
think the sacrifices, but then with family and stuff like that, like my family would all sit down and have a meal in the evenings, but I'm out training till 8 till 10. Like, I'm not part of that. And it's tough, but obviously you've got your football family that you kind of build. But I think it's more when people in your life don't understand the sacrifices you're making. Like, because some people still view my football as a hobby, and obviously I guess it kind of is because I'm not getting paid for it, but it feels more than that for me. So when I'm being like, sorry, I can't come, I'm training, people are like, oh, just miss it. But it's more than that.
it's actually what you want to do.
Yeah.
So how, I think the other question I had was, how would you say mentally it is in terms of, you know, as I said, like, football can be physically draining. You know, we've all played at least A level, and it can be quite physically draining. You can get quite tired physically. But how would you say, I guess what I'm trying to say is, what's the best way of coping with football from, like, a personal kind of mental side of it?
So I think it's mentally tough. You have to be strong to go out and perform on the pitch and keep that consistency and everything. I think that's something that, with me being young as well, I'm struggling with at the moment, if I'm being honest. But I think it's so crucial to have more than just football, which is hard when you're trying to do the football and education and everything, but you need to have something else around it. So I really like spending time in nature, so I'll go on long walks with my dog or that kind of thing. And I found that just having something else in your life. Or the other thing I found recently, journaling has helped me a lot, just to, like, rationalise my thoughts, that kind of thing, ahead of a match especially. I'll sit down in the car and try and write down what I want to happen on the pitch.
Yeah, not getting paid obviously sounds like
That's what's going to come on
that's
to.
that's rough. Like, how, because obviously at this stage in your career you want to focus as much as you can on it, but obviously you also have to live and exist. And
Yeah.
like, how is that? Because obviously there's the fear of putting too much time into your work and then not having enough time for football and then not progressing with that. Like, what do you do? Sort of, how do you split your time up in that way?
It's so hard because I want to put all of my time into my football. That's ultimately what I'd love to do and what I'd love to make money from. And it's such a time-consuming thing. I want to put all my time into it. But like you said, you have to live as well, which is, it's really hard. I currently don't have a job. I'm not making money. The only thing I do is I'm a referee as well, fully qualified referee. So I referee about once a week and make a little bit from that. But obviously, like, I'm still living with my parents and just trying to put as much time as I can into it. But yeah, it's hard. I don't know how many years I can keep pursuing it at the level that I am.
What level does it sort of start getting sustainable? Like, what? Because you're tier 4 currently.
So as far as I'm aware, tier 3 I think is semi-professional.
Okay.
But not much. Like
Yeah.
you won't be making much, but a
Part-time work, yeah.
little bit on
Mhm.
the side. Tier 2, the championship is when you start to make enough,
Yeah.
but
A
not
living
very,
wage, but
not
Yeah,
very
not
much.
Premier
I think
League.
there's still a couple of championship teams that are still almost semi-pro.
Yeah.
Can't actually afford to go professional yet. So
Mm.
Yeah.
And then it's the WSL where the money starts to come in, but at the same time, if you're a lower player in the WSL, you're still not making very much.
Do you see that pathway there? Obviously, you want to know that you can get there, but do
Yeah.
you see like a realistic, like, do you know where you're sort of heading?
Yeah, I feel like at the moment it's achievable, and I do feel like I can get there. Obviously, I'm still so young in my career, but it's so dependent on other things. Like, I don't know how long I can sustain what I'm doing without making money and having to split my time with a job. So it's so dependent on what happens.
Yeah.
It's a bit up in the air.
it's a
At the
difficult
moment.
cycle, isn't it?
Do you think the social media stuff will help you with that?
That's what I'm hoping for, and that is if I had to drop my football now and pursue a career, that's the career I'd want to pursue. So I'm hoping that might start to come when I get to a level where I can start making something from it at least.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing having the backing of Under Armour as well will be
Yeah.
helpful
Yes,
in
they
that.
are.
You know,
Massively so.
'cause I think how important would you say is like older, more experienced players playing with you? I think this is something that I kind of think the fans kind of just don't really realise this is, but the younger you are, the more important, more experienced, older players are. As you said with Haley before, how important was that to you, on and off the pitch?
It's invaluable. That's what you need as a young player. You need someone who's willing to kind of take you under their wing and just show you the right way and how to perform on the pitch, but also how to manage off the pitch. I think it's so critical, and it's something that I'm grateful to have at London Seawood. I'm playing alongside some players who are so knowledgeable, and they get to training and I'm just asking questions, and they're so willing to help, which has been incredible.
Do you get a sort of similar thing like in the men's game where once people have sort of started to like drop down from the Premier League, will they start to go down to sort of the lower leagues? And
Yeah, so you definitely
right there.
get a drop down effect when people are like coming down the leagues.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think players returning to old clubs as well.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing as well is, I think I saw you put on social media the other day that where you wanted to play was Champion Hill. How do you think, playing at, for example, you've got a team like Dutch Hamlet that have such a big backing. How do you think that, fans and stuff will help, playing in front of, a couple of 100,000 people?
Yeah.
That's how important do you think that is for a player,
I think it's massive. It's what you want to do. Like, you see the Premier League where they're playing in front of full stadiums, and that's the dream. If we can get to a point where we're getting that many people coming to matches, that's how clubs are going to start making money.
Yeah.
And when they start seeing women's football as something that they can actually make money out of, they'll start pumping more, and it will just get better. So the fans at this moment in time, I think, are so crucial for women's football to continue developing.
And then you see that progressing with the fans.
Yeah,
You see that
definitely.
happening.
Definitely, 100%. Even at Tier 4, where I am at the moment, you can see like some clubs who have got the backing and have had money pumped in, they'll just go straight through.
Mhm.
Like the biggest example at the moment, have you heard of Real Bedford?
I've heard of them, yes.
Yeah.
So they were Tier 5 last year, and the men's side, I guess, pumped in a bunch of money, got a bunch of players from Tier 4 to come down to Tier 5 to be paid. And then they went straight up into Tier 4. They're now in the same league as me, and have paid for a bunch of players to come down from Tier 3. And the chances are
the Wrexham of women's football.
they'll go straight
Yeah,
through
that
again.
Wrexham effect of
Yeah.
money is key at this stage,
Yeah.
especially for semi-professional teams. The quicker you can go professional, the more money you'll make,
Yeah.
the bigger you'll get,
Yeah.
Well,
more people you'll get in.
saw it with United Women's. They went literally were founded in 2017 and went
Yeah.
straight to the top.
Yeah.
They just bought in,
Yeah,
and there's a lot because the fees are a lot lower. They can sort of justify it a lot easier. But
Mm.
buying in City players and Barcelona players and just pumping it straight to the top.
well, yeah, because you get like the traditional teams like Arsenal, for example, kind of the women's team has always just been around. Then you've got like I think United, Liverpool was the same, where they've kind of set up a team, pumped money into it, and it's shot up. And I think, I think getting the backing from a bigger club. So, for example, looking at like I know we don't have it much here, but in the Netherlands, for example, you have a lot of like affiliates. You'll have smaller clubs being helped by bigger clubs. I know that's a rule that the FA here don't particularly like, but I think that is so important because in the Dutch league, you've got men and women, smaller clubs being backed by the likes of Ajax, Feyenoord, PSV. and you're seeing. Yes, they might still be a semi-professional team, but the quality is so high, and I think that same with France is the same.
Yeah.
I think that is something that, especially in the women's game, would be good to look into
Yeah.
because it would allow better quality, better facilities, and I think will help, as you said, boost reputation and also then better experiences for you as well. Especially a young player.
Do you see much because in the English game, in the men's game, big teams will buy millions of players, get loads and loads, bring all their academy players through and then loan them out. Do you get many loans in the?
So I actually went on loan, I guess, last season when I was with Cambridge because I wasn't getting many minutes. About January time, it's slightly different in the women's game. It's called a dual signing, so you can sign for multiple teams.
Same as National League, isn't it? Because I know in the National League you can be on loan at a club in a lower league, but still be training with the first team.
That's what I was doing. So I went out to Stevenage, and I was getting my game minutes of the weekend with Stevenage, but I was training with them once a week and training with Cambridge once a week still. So I was with both. So yeah, you get quite a lot of that around like January time. Lots of players will dual sign with other teams.
We do at Ajax. Under 20s, under 21s do that where they'll go and play for a second division or a third division team, but they'll come and train with the Ajax under 21s for the facilities, for example. So I think, how was that experience for you? At Stevenage you played, you said?
Yeah.
How was that experience?
So it was obviously brilliant to get the game minutes. Like that's what I needed, and that's why I did it. For me, I struggled with not feeling fully part of either team. You're kind of in the middle of both, and because I was missing one training session a week with both teams, so I was with Stevenage once and then Cambridge once. You're missing so much time with it that you feel like when you come in, you're a bit on the edge. So it was hard, but obviously it had to happen.
So it's the relationship kind of in the team that almost took a hit because of that.
Yeah, or even like with Stevenage, only training once and then turning up on a Sunday. Or there were some times where I was then missing a few weeks with Stevenage because Cambridge had an injury and I was back on the bench for them. So you're just so in between. It got to a point where people were like, "Where are you training tonight?" Like, I don't know.
I guess also they play two different systems as well, so it's like having to balance that would be ridiculous as well.
Yeah, what you were saying earlier about sort of you got reached out to for Seawood by them on social media.
Yeah.
Do you think your social media presence sort of helped that and made that happen? And do you think going forward, like having that exposure, because obviously there's the sort of household name sort of thing hasn't quite got there with a lot of women's football. Like, do you think that will help you?
I hope so, and that's maybe part of the reason why I'm doing it. I think that you need to be recognised. People need to know you if you're going to go somewhere. So I hope that will help, but I don't know if that was part of the reason or not.
You were reachable, and that is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Twitter account actually, or X or whatever it's called now. That
Twitter.
Yeah, we still just call it Twitter.
That way you can send them your details and they will post you saying that you're looking for a club. So I reached out to them and was like, "These are my details," and they made a post, and that's where I got a lot of my interest from.
Okay,
and I suspect that's probably where London Seawood, the manager, saw me from that probably, and that's where he's reached out to me from.
And what are the contracts like at your level? Kind of, is it always 1 year, or do you get 2 year, 3 year contracts?
So it's not proper contracts.
Okay.
You don't sign in, you can leave when you want. At this level, I don't think in the women's game you're allowed to have proper contracts. It might be different tier 3, I don't know, but yeah, it's not a proper contract. I can go to someone else.
So if someone signed you now, let's say someone from tier 3 club signed you, you could just move straight to there?
Yeah.
Or even in the same division, for example, you could just kind of move between the clubs.
So there's no transfer window.
No, but I know that there's a limit. You can only sign for 3 different teams in a season.
That's the whole England rule.
It's a registration.
Yeah, that's an England rule.
Contracts,
So I know that, I think, was it 2 seasons ago, there was a player at, I want to say it was Tottenham, who was on loan at League One club, then got called back to Tottenham, played 1 game, then went to a championship team, and they couldn't play in the championship because of that rule. Yeah, we have the same. Yeah. Okay, so if another team wanted to sign you, they could, and you could play for them, just as long as then you wouldn't go over that limit.
Yeah, I know there's some weird rule. So with Stevenage, before I went on loan to them, they actually reached out. They wanted to sign me quite early on in the season. So I think they put in like a 7-day transfer request. I don't know how it works, but my manager at Cambridge told me that Stevenage had reached out and that he turned it down. So I don't know how it fully works.
What league is Stevenage in?
So Stevenage is Tier 5, one below
Okay.
Cambridge.
Yeah, so it's like that kind of almost transfer, like almost like inquiry type of stuff.
Yeah.
You can inquire about someone, and it's like kind of time period on that instead of a transfer window. Same with National League has the same
Yeah,
thing.
it's very similar.
There's
So
no open and closed transfer window.
No, there's no open. Yeah, in the National League South, which is where my team is, there's no. Like, I think we signed a guy called Yo-Yo Bamba last season in March.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saying
So
someone has to leave, got him
yeah.
out, got someone else in,
Yeah.
started firing. Yeah.
You can just leave whenever. So
Yeah.
No, it's so interesting.
So that's interesting.
What's the sort of age profile at Seawood? Like, is it sort of a lot of people who are around your age, or?
I think I'm the youngest.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'm the youngest, but there's a couple 19, 20. We've got quite a young squad, I think, with it being put together so last minute.
Mhm.
I was going to say, I think you said because you're kind of almost rebuilding, you're almost going to go for that youth
People with
and just
availability.
try and I think that's the thing, youth and availability.
So
what was the reason that the team kind of almost got completely changed? Do you know, or can you say it?
Yeah, that's a good question actually.
I know that the management got offered London Bees. So London Bees were Tier 3. They got relegated to now are Tier 4. But they've got more backing than a Seawood, who are a standalone women's team. So the manager went across to London Bees. I don't know the full, but he basically took everyone with him. The whole team
Just
went.
the back room went, yep, let's go.
Pretty much, and I think he left maybe like 10 players across 2 squads.
Oh, wow.
So we've had a complete rebuild, and
Yeah.
we're doing well for when you take a step back and think where we were about a month ago.
Yeah.
We're doing really
Yeah.
well.
That's crazy.
It's a good start just to kind of get back on your feet and make sure that
Yeah.
everything. I think once everything gets into place, then you can kind of push up.
Yeah.
Oh,
How's
yeah,
it-
you sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, how is it sort of, you touched on it a bit there, but being at an independent team rather than being at the women's team for established men's?
Yeah, it's different because obviously Cambridge have the backing of the men's team, and we would do stuff at the Abbey and that kind of thing, which was cool. But it's a very different environment, and trying to get together sponsors who will invest in us, and that has all been hard, I think, for the club and those running it. But at the same time, it's quite a special story. Like being a standalone women's team, I couldn't name you another team that's got no men's connections at all. So like it's quite nice, and I think that that's something that's important. There needs to be more of that. It can't just be the women's game relying on the men's game.
Yeah.
I think that there should be more standalone women's teams.
I think that's the only way it's going to push on its own without that.
Choosing to support a team rather than supporting a women's
Yeah,
team because
I
you
think-
support the men's
I
team.
think that's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Go on.
Okay, well, I have a question of what. So, what would you say is your favorite? So, you've played at different stadiums, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say is your favourite that you've played?
Oof, good question.
So didn't actually play, but got to warm up on the pitch. Last season we played against Norwich City at Carrow Road,
Oh, nice.
which was very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's the biggest stadium I've been at. But as well, the Abbey Stadium with Cambridge United is also really cool. But Carrow Road, definitely.
Impressive. And are you starting this season? Or
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah, so I've been getting good minutes so far.
That's
Really good. Really happy with that.
Positive?
Yeah, definitely.
Clean sheets?
No clean sheets so far, I
Yeah.
don't think. But like I said, we're in the
Early
process.
days.
Yeah.
Very
Good development,
Very
though.
early
Yeah.
days.
18 starting, very good
Yeah.
development. You know what I mean?
No
That's
matter what
really
level
good.
you're at, starting at 18, especially as a defender as well, it's very big.
It's key as well. I think the key, the younger you are, is the more you play.
Mhm.
And I think, as you said, the only way is up from here. I think it's important. The more you play, the more you can push on, and I think that will then give you the exposure you need, especially with the back of social media. I think that
that's
and
huge.
the Under Armour stuff is so important.
Mhm.
As you said, this club has reached out to you. It's not like you've had to go somewhere, or I think that is key, and I think that will bring attention to you, and even something like this, doing like
Yeah.
podcasts and working
Hopefully
on this
this will
kind of
help.
stuff. Yeah, like
Yeah,
it's building your own kind of brand
definitely.
as yourself with the backing of like someone like Under Armour is so important.
One thing I wanted to touch on as well is I wanted to know because obviously in recent seasons, especially last season, ACL injuries in women, especially in the WSL, has been a huge talking point. Kind of, is there things that at your level is done to manage that? Because I know in the women's team for Borough, different. So depending on the person's cycle, they will train differently as well. I'm unsure about what it is like for you.
I've not experienced any sort of like considerations towards that. Obviously, it's scary, and I've seen enough players even so early on in my career who have done the ACLs, and it's terrifying. But no, I've not had any experience of any clubs trying to combat it, I guess.
Okay. Do you think that will change in the future, or is it just maybe because there's just so little research into it? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've done my own. I've tried to look into it myself. The research is so not known. Nobody really knows why it's happening at the moment. So obviously, with no knowledge, you can't really do anything to change
I think
it.
it's also resources. Looking at, do you have the resources? Let's say there was something. Do you have the resources to actually, put money into this kind of thing? You know what I mean?
Doctors and sports scientists are expensive.
Yeah.
It's like, the players don't get paid. You can't afford to have a
That was what I was
doctor
about.
enrolled.
That's what I was about. That was what I was about to say. If
100
the
grand,
players can't,
Yeah.
then you can't support that. So I think that's important as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, hopefully, obviously, especially the previous season happening with. I mean, how many England players were
Too
out?
many.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Too
I know
many.
Maynard for our Dutch team was out for nearly a year and a half or something. The England team had at one point about 4 different players out with an ACL injury.
And our captain as well. I
Yeah,
believe.
that I think it was one of the 4.
Yeah.
That was, it's
Chelsea fan,
crazy.
you love having a captain out with it.
Yeah, no, we don't like having captains.
Captains don't really work for you, do they?
No. We sold one of ours this season. This is for the men's side, by the way. Just for
fair
context.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's. So, what have you found looking into it yourself?
So doing my own research into it, there was some talk about, because obviously women are smaller, that their ACLs are smaller than men. So obviously with it being smaller, it's easier to tear. Is potentially one option of why it's happening, or maybe hips being bigger, just putting weight on your ACL differently. Maybe the fact we're using men's boots instead of having women's specific boots.
That's important.
Well, it was only last year they introduced a women's ball, right?
I've not heard of that.
I saw something about that in some leagues.
It's the same size, but just ever so slightly lighter,
Okay.
or has a bit more bounce to it. I think that also just that stress, that strain.
Yeah.
Because if it is something like that, I think more, for example, more focus on endurance would be something that could help. But of course, as you said, if the clubs can't do the research, if the league can't do the research, then we're kind of just stuck in this kind of moment of as soon as it's pushed into it. So you see how Premier League for men, for example, you're seeing money now start to kind of parachute down into different clubs. I think the women's league, because of it's a smaller format, money would go almost further with smaller teams. So it's almost more. Of course, you need the Premier League teams and Championship teams to make enough. But I think if you can get to that point, I think then filtering research and money down will be very good, and will then benefit the likes of you.
The football pyramid.
Yeah, exactly. Well, especially because, as I said, it's a smaller pyramid, so money will filter down. You could put kind of almost less money that can still make an effect.
Yeah.
So it's you're not losing that much, which I think would be important for the likes of you and other different clubs.
And I guess going from not being paid to being paid would be quite a drastic change.
Massive.
Yeah.
Even just getting expenses.
Yeah.
Like I'm paying over £100 a week in petrol, just trying to get to training and stuff.
Yeah.
Even just contract, knowing that you have a contract with the club is important as well. Just that security.
Yeah.
Would you consider ever picking up and going Spain, France, Germany? Because I know they've got really good scenes over there.
Yeah. So even America, I know a lot of my teammates have gone out to America for scholarships and stuff.
Is that would that ever be on the cards for you? I know somebody who's going to Florida this year.
My friend's just done that, gone from Fulham to America because it's a professional contract.
I think a few years ago that would have been more attractive, but I think the women's game has come on such a long way, especially since the Euros in this country, that you don't need to go abroad.
Yeah.
And I feel like the issue with going abroad is you don't know what you're going to until you're out there.
Yeah.
You could go somewhere and they've got centre backs, they don't need you, or you don't enjoy it there and you're so far away. So it's not something that I'd be like, no, I'm never going to do that. But I think at the moment where I'm in my career, I'm happy enough in England.
You'd have to be right and you'd have to have assurances.
Yeah.
It's positive to hear that from a footballer. Positive to hear that the women's game is growing so much and so quickly here that actually, you know, because of course in America they have the rule of any amount of money they put into the men's game, they have to put into women's. That's just a rule. That's why their women's national team is so good. But I think it's very nice hearing from a footballer that actually here has come up so quick and in such a big leap that actually it's not as necessary doing that.
Isn't it the fastest growing sport right now?
I think
Women's
so,
football.
I would
In
say
the world.
I think it is.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I think, as I'm from Brazil, it's very big there.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
massive
pretty sure
throughout
it's
South America.
world's biggest
I
sport.
saw the other day it's now the most popular women's sport in the
Yeah.
world.
We'll look it up.
So I'm not surprised by that.
Mm.
Quick check.
To be
I
honest.
just look at the viewership differences between the Euro World Cup final, like 2 years apart. Literally, like
Definitely.
heartbreaking.
Oh yeah, that was awful.
Yeah, I was at the
Oh.
England Women's Euros. The final, I was doing the ushering outside. Got to watch it, and it was the atmosphere was incredible.
The women's Euros was so good. I was actually lucky enough. I got tickets to all of the matches. I travel around the country watching them, and it
That's so
was
Yeah.
something special.
That,
Like
that final was
here we go.
heartbreaking.
Oh yeah. So here we go. Women's soccer, they call it or whatever, is one of the most popular women's sports worldwide and in the UK. 2021 globally 22%. 2023 has gone up to 80%. So yeah, from 22% in 2021 to 80% in 2023.
yeah,
That is a
insane.
ridiculous jump.
Yeah.
I was at the Emirates for I can't remember which game it was, but it was the first women's Arsenal game that was sold out. And even just that, like itself, was just incredible. Do you know what I mean? Like seeing the fans going to there, and then seeing where they're playing at like Bournemouth. It's like
It's
nearly 10
worlds
times
apart.
capacity. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
worlds
Yeah.
apart. Massive.
Sky just need to take the gamble and just start televising more because
Yeah.
it wouldn't cost them much to get the contracts. It wouldn't cost them much to get the deals.
I think
and
splitting it between like TNT even, you're paying
Just-
even less
just-
between both, and you just broadcast the games.
just having the option to watch it
Or Prime.
people will watch it
Yeah.
when it's on. People watched,
Yeah.
especially during summer. Like people watched the women's Euro even if they weren't invested
Yeah,
in
women's World
women's
Cup as
football
well, same thing.
because you want to watch football. People who like football like watching football, and
Yeah. I think especially because now they're trying to push women's games to be different time to like big men's games, so it's like because of viewership would go up. So if you play the games, people will watch it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean,
Might as well try, but go gamble it.
it'd be so easy to get kind of a streaming service sorted.
So
Let's do
currently for the last few years you've been able to watch all the women's WSL matches on the FA Player.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
there's this app, but the streaming quality is awful.
Oh,
There's no
yeah.
like replays of anything, so if you miss it, you've missed it. It's not been great. But if you want to watch football, that's the only way you can watch the women's game at the moment.
and that's clearly, as shown by us two not knowing about it really, is it's not very well publicised.
No, I did actually know.
European
Because
Union
yeah,
I
massive.
did actually know
Yes.
because I've watched some of the games.
Oh, you have.
But it's interesting. So I've done I've done some work with CONCACAF,
Oh,
which
yes.
is North American football, and it's interesting because to watch, for example, some of even the Gold Cup games, like an actual international tournament, some of the games are only streamed on YouTube. They haven't even got their own, they have like FA Play. They haven't even got that. They're just
Yeah.
streamed on YouTube. It's just one guy with a camera turning the camera and a commentator.
That's mad.
I remember I did one of them. I did Curacao Aruba. Literally was just a guy with a camera and me with a microphone. That's it. Was nothing else.
Yeah.
And if something happened, there was I think one replay we could play, and I was like, well, I don't really know what to do here. But it's very interesting how, women's football has suddenly shot up in comparison to the whole of CONCACAF, in comparison to the FA. Shows the FA is already putting in more money than the whole of CONCACAF. So I think it's a good sign. I think we need it to push on more.
Yeah.
I think one of the main ways that's going to happen, as well as viewership, is of course working out through the leagues a way of filtering money so that it benefits everyone. Because otherwise, you get a very big kind of gap. You look at like the Premier League Championship. It's not that big of a gap now.
Yeah.
Whereas the
Still a
Premier
big gap.
No, of course, but in comparison to like Women's Premier League, Women's Championship, there's going to
Yeah.
be a bigger gap because
Yeah.
they've got some semi-professional teams.
Yeah.
So I think
It's definitely money at the moment. I mean, did you
Yeah.
see with Reading getting relegated from the WSL and now they put no money in, no backing from the men's team at all, and they were sent down to Tier 5 because
I saw
there
that.
was nothing at all.
was
So
it like 4 relegated? They got 1 relegated like once, and they dropped 4 leagues, wasn't it?
because
Something like
there's no money in it, and the club
Insane.
didn't back them at all. So obviously all those players who were playing WSL football now
Yeah.
they're not going to be playing tier 5. So
Yeah,
it
I think that
comes-
also comes
basically,
from-
that's it done.
That comes from as well financial problems in the men's team, because the men's Reading team
Yeah,
also
I mean,
had
there's-
severe
got some
financial
serious
issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had
There's
severe.
that.
So it's like, I think if you have the backing, you've got to make sure you're using the money wisely
Mm.
to actually keep your finances, but also working with, actually getting the money into the women's team that is enough to keep it, but also actually have that money that if anything happens, you have like a backup for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not fair on the players who have gone from WSL
Yeah.
to suddenly without a club.
Yeah.
And, because there was a massive thing about Bordeaux in France, where that's happened with them. All publicity, this team, the majority of people, even in England,
Don't even know about it.
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
wouldn't even have heard of it, or probably wouldn't even have known they were Reading in the WSL. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
such a big thing that just kind of goes missing, which is unfair.
I don't know if you play FIFA at all.
Not really.
I think like in the last year, because they added
Yeah.
the
no, I
women
saw
into
that.
Ultimate Team,
That's-
and like having conversations at the pub with guys and they're like, "Oh, have you seen that? I've seen Madry play for Leon.
Yeah.
She's insane." I'm like, "Yeah, it's crazy."
I
Like
think
the
FM will
number
bring
of
that in as well.
household names there are now,
Yeah.
just through that, like that, just there being an awareness, and then from that, I've seen clips posted on Twitter, clips posted on Instagram.
Football
Yeah.
Manager will do the same thing. I think it will bring a lot of, viewership
Yeah.
to it. I think that's kind of what I'm getting out of it. That is the most important thing. The more viewership, the more money,
Yeah.
the
Just
more
knowing about
opportunity.
it, like
Yeah.
literally just hearing things without having to search it out and having to. So I've got like on my Athletic app, got the women's updates because otherwise I would just miss it. And then, like,
Yeah.
it just puts it in with the men's stuff, so I just click on something like that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very interesting as well. You get very interested transfers. You get very interesting stuff. So, I think the highest women's transfer is about 500k, and it's like, look at even like we're getting players in the Premier League. We're looking at, for example, like Solanke, for example,
Yeah.
going for 65 mil. We're thinking that's a lot. Whereas in the women's game, we're looking at 500,000 is the most you've ever seen, and it's like there's a massive difference there.
I do think that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good spot. Sorry, my boyfriend. I think that's a really good spot to end the podcast. I want to say thank you very much. I mean, you got us debating
Yeah,
about
literally.
women's football and all that, which was really good.
I've actually got one
Go
more thing just for you. What would you say to anyone who wants to be a
Good
footballer, especially from the women's side, especially young as well? What would you say is your kind of key, doesn't have to be one, but kind of set of advice? What would you say is the most important thing?
I mean, obviously, first of all, they need to start playing it, and I think that doesn't matter where it is. I think, especially with the women's game now getting bigger, a lot of people feel that they need to be in an academy or they need to be in the top team or whatever straight away. I started so low down, and I didn't sign. I was playing grassroots until I was 18, or not 18, under 18. So I was 16 at the time. But yeah, like I think it's so important not to compare yourself to others when you're young and starting out, especially. I think you have to trust that everyone's journey is different and you will get to the top in your own way. It might not be the way you want it to be, but you will get there. You just have to keep persevering. And I think with social media now, it's so easy to see other people and the opportunities they're getting and then beat yourself up about not getting it yourself.
Mhm.
So I think you just need to back yourself, not compare yourself to others too much, and just go for it. Just believe in yourself. Give it a go.
Perfect.
That's an amazing
You
point
nailed
to end
that,
on.
though.
Yeah,
You nailed
that is literally perfect.
Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for
Where
having me.
can everyone find you on social media?
So across all social media platforms, at Beatrice Rogers _. That's where you
That's
find
pretty
me
easy.
everywhere.
Cool. Yeah, it will
That's very
be
easy.
in links. Will be on
Yeah.
social media.
Everything.
Read throughout ours.
We'll be tagged in all the clips and everything else
Yeah.
like that. So,
We'll send you all the clips as well if you want to put that on social media. Feel free.
Thank you.
It's all yours.
and we'll see you in the next podcast, guys.
Yeah.